guy thing. And we're here with Tiffany. She's
a licensed mental health counselor.
You heard it right. and Joe, he is actually the host.
Am I?
And
I want Sharon to be the host.
I'm the co-host. And you guys are going to be listening live. And I'm going to let Joe take it because this is his show. I'm just the co-host.
Yeah. Sharon's the best co-host. That was a nice intro. I like that, Sharon.
Thanks, Sharon.
So what's up, everybody? Thank you for tuning in real quick. We'll do the cake if you mind being the Vanna White in the situation. But great to do this again live. I love doing this show. We're episode 50 right now. Which is really cool. And we're actually, Guy Think Podcast is just celebrating its 1 year anniversary. So it's really cool to see how this show kind of took off. And it started out in my kitchen with one microphone, and that's it. And now it's Skype interviews, live shows, and just an endless amount of interesting people that want to be a part of it. So it's kind of crazy.
He's had celebrities. He's had big names. He's the real deal, guys. He's not like a little jerk off podcast guy. He's like the real deal. So
I love it.
Anyway,
I love it. Thank you for that. But I'm really happy to just do the show, and so many people watch it and enjoy it. So for the year in review, I just want to thank everybody that has supported my show. I'd like to thank all the guests that have been on the show, and I'd like to just say thanks to watching this whole thing evolve from one little tiny podcast episode to 1 year in the making. So thank you guys.
Exciting.
Yeah, it's very cool.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. So it's going to be a fun episode today. Before we get into it, Vanna, would you like to show everybody what I get? The coolest family: my mom, my dad, my aunt, my uncle, my family. They got me a cool cake. Check this cake out.
Okay, I'm going to do it very carefully. I don't want to drop it.
But this is so cool.
Do the tilt. See, I'm sorry about my finger, but.
There it is.
But here we go.
There it is.
Look at this cake. It says a Guy Thing Podcast. Do you believe
cool.
that? Is that not the coolest cake?
What a surprise.
Now tell us, Joe, who made the cake?
I believe this is, hold on. I don't want to give the wrong information.
Oh, I get to lick my finger.
But let's see. This was Publix.
Wow.
Publix, guys. Can't go wrong with Publix.
Oh, my God.
So thank you to my family for always supporting me, and this was really cool. Love it. And today's guest for episode 50, we have Tiffany Carlson. We're going to talk about therapy. She's with Begin Life. We're going to talk about different kinds of therapy, positive balance in your life, how to achieve those goals with a positive mindset. So I'm very happy and excited to. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. So I guess tell the listeners a little bit about Begin Life and what your mission is with.
Sure. So I started Begin Life about 2 years ago after being in the field for about 8 or 9 years. I'm a licensed mental health counselor, certified addictions professional, and I'm a Florida qualified supervisor for registered interns. And after working in the field for a while, I decided I wanted to do something kind of on the side and have maybe a longer term plan for my master's degree working in the healthcare field. So it's been officially 2 years this August that I've had Begin Life. It's been a journey between the logo, the business cards, the office space, the marketing, the clientele. So it's been a whirlwind journey, but I like it so far.
Amazing. So what inspired you to, get started? What was the big inspiration?
Well, one thing I noticed in the healthcare field, there's several things I've noticed, is that sometimes the client care gets put on the back burner, so to speak, and a lot of insurances will dictate patient care. So that's one thing that was really important to me doing my private practice. I didn't want to be on the insurance panels. I wanted to just take cash pay clientele so I could really direct the sessions, and it can kind of be more about what I think the patients need instead of what the insurances want.
It's so true. And have you worked before with insurance companies?
Yes, on all of my full-time jobs. Yes.
So what's the big difference between dealing with the insurances? I know you said they kind of dictate the treatment in a way. So is that,
It's limiting. Sometimes they'll say, a patient can only get 6 or 8 sessions, or you have to submit documentation or treatment plans. They have to meet some sort of certain criteria. They can deny a claim if it's, submitted at 12:01 the next day for really any reason. And I didn't want that to be the driving force of me becoming frustrated about billing and then having that kind of be its whole animal that I didn't really need to deal with. I wanted to be able to focus on the patient care.
Absolutely. I think and that's the most important thing.
I agree.
So What are you doing there, Sharon?
I must have put the camera back
There's
the
no
wrong way.
sound.
Oh, okay. There you go. Now we got sound.
I
That's
had
great.
to turn the volume on so that there would be sound.
Did you hear it?
That would be important.
I apologize, guys. I had automatically, I'm so sorry. Let me
What'd you put in
interrupt.
that coffee? That's what
But
I
I
want to know.
automatically, because of being on set, I turn my phone off, the sound, the ringer. And so you guys had no sound. So you didn't hear anything. I'm so sorry. Okay, go back. I'm sorry.
Thanks for fixing that, Sharon.
Sharon's on top of it. Sharon,
No,
not
I-
only co-host, not only actress, not only comedian, production engineer as well. So
Yeah.
thank you
No,
very much.
bad
to detail.
production engineer.
At least we didn't go the whole episode without the sound, so that's good.
Oh,
That's
let's
right.
see what I just did. That was like a mental health thing.
Oh,
No,
Oh,
that's
yeah.
okay.
Have you-
Oh,
to,
speaking of, Jeffrey Epstein, right?
have you heard?
Oh,
Epstein.
you didn't hear? He,
No.
or maybe he didn't. He just had somebody wheel him out. The other guy wheeled in. They said that was him. I'm thinking maybe conspiracy theory, but I'm diverting. Okay, go ahead.
So, what was the? I know you can't get into detail of specific patients, but what are
Sure.
some standout situations with patients that you've had that were kind of like maybe a breakthrough or something that really stood out to you that was like, wow, I love what I do because I was able to do this for someone.
I think sometimes helping patients get to understanding what we want them to maybe already know in our time frame on their own and being able to do it on my sort of calendar. I think it's so amazing to see that change in patients with like a whole, I don't have an adjective that I'm trying to think of right now, but to be able to see that they're understanding of their own accord, what their diagnoses are and kind of like where they came from, and to recognize some of their own behaviorals on their own need to be changed without me kind of saying, hey, we only have 30 days to treat you and I get to only see you once a week. So let's hurry up and kind of like get on in there because I have to affect as much change as possible in a short period of time. So I get to do that more in my private practice, and I appreciate that.
That's incredible. How is it working in your private practice, having your own office?
It's nice, I guess. Yeah, I'm not the best at decorating, so it's okay.
So I guess as long as you have a couch and a pillow, right? Is that?
Yeah, and I got a nice window with a little water view, so I like that. And it's in like a little hallway, and I kind of like in recessed parking lot, so it's not necessarily in a busy street. No solicitors are coming there because nobody really knows the building's there. You're only going there if you're actually driving and you have an appointment with somebody, so I like that.
Okay. I don't know. I know you definitely. Not sure about you, but Sopranos. Have you ever seen The Sopranos?
Yes.
Okay. So when I watched The Sopranos and I saw, Tony with Dr. Melfi and, having that interaction, it's like, I would just be like, all right, is this how therapy is? Like, do you just sit there and just wait until the patient speaks, or do you initiate conversation?
You can do it either which way. I guess it
Okay.
depends on your own kind of personal styles and your rapport with your patients and maybe what's really going on. If it's their first therapy session or their 10th session, and you kind of.
What type of patients do you see normally?
Typically in my full-time jobs, I've been working in substance abuse addiction.
Mhm.
I did vary a little bit from that path when I moved out of state. I worked in the high acuity of mental health. And then I've also worked with children with developmental disabilities,
Okay.
but I end up always kind of coming back to rehab. That's a little rampant down here in South Florida. So I like that in my private practice. The bulk of my patients are not substance abuse. I do obviously have people that struggle with some of those issues, but it allows me to kind of treat different things
Right.
in the DSM, and it's not just the monotony of the same kind of things over. I'd say for me, my personal type of modality, and I do also put this on my website, something that I'm very passionate about, thinking disorders, thought disorders, cognitive restructuring, I'm very passionate about because I know it's worked for me and I've seen it change people's lives. It's a type of therapy called rational emotive behavioral therapy. It's pretty similar to CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, but it really works with kind of understanding about people's core belief systems. They made that really cute movie with Amy Poehler a few years back with the gosh, with like the emotions in that little girl's head. I can't remember the name of that movie. It was like a Pixar movie. It was so cute. Gosh, I wish I could.
Pixar?
Oh, it was animated.
It was an animated
okay.
movie, and Amy Poehler was one of the emotions. And it talks about how like the core belief systems in this little girl's head kind of formulate her actions and reactions to the current present day. And I think that stuff is so important to be mindful and aware of.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's pretty interesting.
I wish I could remember the name of the movie now.
I know. We'll
I'll have to Google it.
Yeah, so our listeners out there, let us know. What's the name of the movie?
What was the name of that movie?
Yes.
The Pixar movie with
So-
Amy Poehler.
Now, are you a one-woman show as far as behind the scenes, business-wise?
For my private practice,
Your
yes.
private practice.
Mhm.
I love that. I love hearing, like, it's very inspirational for me when I hear people that are, like, self-motivators and they're able to, because, it takes a lot to operate a business, get a business up and running, function it, have patience,
Research,
scheduling. There's a lot to it. So I credit you big
Thank
time
you.
for that.
I
think that's
appreciate
great.
that. There's positives and negatives working in a company with other people versus working by yourself. Having the autonomy to kind of make your own decisions is so amazing. But there are times that I get a little lonely. If I was just sitting full time in my private practice seeing, 8 patients a day, I'd kind of just be talking to myself. Sometimes you do want to staff a patient case if you kind of want a fresh pair of eyes on it. In that case, I'll reach out to just maybe some of my colleagues and kind of give a general overview of it, or even my qualified supervisor that I did my hours for my internship through several years ago. He's really great. I'll kind of go to them and say, hey, I have a patient issue, kind of just want to spitball some ideas. And I do miss having that. In my full-time job, I get to have that. I get to staff patient issues with the team, the treatment team. So it's kind of nice to have the positives and negatives of both.
Absolutely. What was the craziest patient you ever dealt with?
Oh my gosh, probably the ones who get physically aggressive. Those are interesting. And then it's kind of like a flash in the pan and then it's over pretty quickly.
Yeah,
but I
throw stuff in your office and stuff like
just
that?
like punch holes in the walls. But I'd say maybe the ones who are really manipulative and trying to get families and staff to really like believe things that they also believe to be true, then it's really hard to treat somebody if they won't be honest about what's going on.
Right. Yeah, I can't imagine that. Punching holes in the walls, though.
Yeah.
So does that go on the self-pay? Because insurance.
That's more in the substance abuse kind of industry.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's wild. So have you worked in like a medical facility before for like Baker Act patients?
I've not worked
like that?
on a psych ward, but I have
Okay.
Baker acted patients before. Yes.
Okay. Oh, I have
Yeah.
the ability to do that.
Mhm.
She made Baker Act me if I have one more of these beers.
Oh my
You're next, Sharon.
That's a given. That is a given.
Sharon, have you ever done therapy before?
The only time, and it's weird how this is going to be a 6 degrees or 2 degrees of separation for this place. The only time I have ever worked with a therapist, I'll say counselor, was when I first moved to South Florida. And I moved to South Florida, it's too long to really get into, but I had to work with women in distress.
Oh wow.
And she was really instrumental in helping me to get a lifetime restraining order against somebody. And we are,
Shout out.
Jesse, shout out to Women in Distress and Jesse Cohen. We are actually working on putting together a benefit here at Mad Robot
Great.
on
I love
Saturday evening, October 12th, to benefit women in distress.
Oh, Sharon, that's
And
amazing.
we are, I'm so excited to be here right now doing this. Thank you, Joe and
Absolutely.
Tiffany. But that is the one and only time I've ever worked with a counselor. And she was really instrumental in helping me to move forward. And I need actually decades of counseling.
Everybody can benefit.
I'm going to
from.
take your card, Tiffany. But yeah, it's the only time I've ever actually worked with a counselor.
I'm glad that
So
you got
yeah,
help.
and so
That's great. Maybe
Yeah.
we'll do a podcast for it too.
yeah,
Spread the
that
word.
would be great.
Yeah.
That would really be
Yeah,
great.
I think that
Yeah.
would be great.
So it's
Jesse
the
was a
only time-
guest on the show as well. So
Yeah, Jesse is
Well,
amazing.
we'll all get together and figure something out.
Yeah,
See?
Awesome.
yeah. So
Glad we
yeah, I
had that
benefited
conversation.
greatly from it, and I'm really a strong.
Shout out also to Tracy Pace. She's in the chat, and
I I love her.
She said the name of the movie is Inside Out.
Yes, thank
Oh,
you,
yay, Tracy
Thank you.
Page.
Tracy gets-
so
We
cute.
gotta send Tracy a Guy Thinks sticker for that.
Yeah.
We gotta send you something.
Great
for that.
movie. Love Amy Poehler.
Yeah, Tracy's amazing, and what a great actor too. She's amazing. I have a lot of cool friends. We all need therapy though, because we're cuckoo.
Of course, I'm biased. I think everybody should benefit from
I
therapy.
think everybody would
Yeah.
benefit from. We all have,
Yeah, we all
stuff.
got our own stuff going on. It's
Yeah.
good to talk about it
It's
and,
good to talk
and
about
get
it.
some perspective on things.
It's
and,
good to talk about
you know.
someone who has an unbiased opinion and who isn't, our friend, our mom, or whatever. Someone who just has no connection to you whatsoever and can give you, just a clear head opinion about it.
And they're
So-
governed by, boards, laws, rules, ethics.
Right, exactly.
Sometimes I see people in my other field, I think interventionists, some of them, I don't necessarily know if there's a governing body for that. So I've heard some pretty horror stories about.
Yeah, I'm not too keen on the whole intervention thing. That's just my opinion because they haven't, to me, an ulterior motive. Hey, come on, get in here. What's your insurance?
So-
I don't
some
like
are
that. I
amazing.
don't
Some
like
are
that.
some are very essential in helping families do
Some
things
are,
that they
but-
haven't been able to do on their own. But I think it's good when there's a board affiliation and there's
Right.
licensures and there's continuing education units. It holds people accountable, and I think that's really
I
important.
agree.
Now,
Yeah.
speaking about family, obviously on your website, you talk about family therapy.
Mhm.
So what's a good example of a family coming in for the first time, that they're seeking help and maybe certain situations that are going on in their life, but what's kind of your technique in talking to a family and getting, the whole family, communicating with each other?
Sure, good questions. Family therapy systems are really important. If I'm initially seeing one party of the family and then one of the other family members wants to see me, that is a boundary issue. So I'll refer one of the other family members out to another therapist. But if they're coming to see me as a family as a whole, I'll certainly see them. I actually love doing couples therapy.
Why is that?
It's so interesting to me, the dynamics of the relationship. I've had really eye-opening sessions, but I will say, unfortunately, the majority of couples therapy sessions typically end up coming in when it's their last-ditch effort to try to save the relationship, and they think that therapist is going to have a magic wand, and it's hard to get anybody else to want to do anything because we can't change or control anybody but ourselves. So I haven't found couples therapy to be as effective. Typically when I'm working with them, it doesn't necessarily mean it's not effective in a general sense. But I think it really depends on what the driving force is that's sending the couples and the families into session. That's
So let's say, for our listeners that are watching right now, or on the replay, let's say they're going through something right now with their partner. What would your advice be to them?
Communication, I think, is so important in any relationship. It could just be with the person checking out your groceries in the store. Communication, if you don't have trust, I think already there's so many boundaries in the relationship that are suffering. So if people need to work on their trust, that needs to kind of be understood, recognized. That's paramount to get trust back in the relationship. I think having honesty, and honesty is not just factual honesty, it's emotional honesty. People are very cognizant of having an IQ, the intelligent quotient, but not a lot of people talk about their emotional quotient.
What's an emotional quotient?
Somebody's maybe readiness to be aware of and understanding of, having the insight of kind of how things are impacting them, their ability to self-regulate through their feelings, because we all have a central nervous system. We can all experience a whole gambit of feelings. It's not wrong to have your feelings, but if people are acting out impulsively on their feelings or have some sort of process addictions because they're struggling to accept or cope with, then the behaviors and the actions that can be unhealthy, those are the ones that become the problem. It's not necessarily the feelings about it, but helping have the communication so that two parties in a relationship can really truly feel heard, having that active and reflective listening with that third unbiased party that Sharon is talking about is so important, because when two parties have a lot of built up tension and aggression and frustration and feeling states for so long, when the other person's talking, a lot of the times they're not really hearing them and they're just waiting for their turn to kind of interject and talk about how they feel, which isn't necessarily wrong, but it makes it very difficult for two people to really hear each other.
Because you're not listening.
Exactly.
You're just waiting for your turn. You're not listening. You're not processing. You're just, okay, hurry up and finish what you're saying because I need to tell you what I'm thinking and feeling.
Exactly.
I'm not even taking into, account what you're thinking and feeling. Just hurry up.
So when should a couple decide, it's hard to even ask that question, but like you said, sometimes most of the time they come to you when it's already kind of too late or,
anytime.
Right,
Anytime.
is just,
even when things are going great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's no wrong answer for that.
True. Very true. I like that. Yeah, I find it interesting, because I have people in my walks of life that deal with a lot of issues in their relationships, and it's interesting. I did have some friends reach out to me that are going through some stuff, and they couldn't wait to hear this show, watch this show, because they're interested in what you have to say about that.
Thank you.
That was one of the reasons why I brought up. I'm glad you actually brought up couples therapy first. But,
yeah, I love doing couples therapy. I'm sick.
Now the question is, when you do couples therapy, does it help when you're in a relationship?
I think it's always important to have insight in other people's. Isn't that so great if we can learn from other people's mistakes and never have to make our own mistakes? Unfortunately, I don't think we could ever go a full lifetime without making mistakes. That's okay. But I think it does help to give you more insight. And I think being in my profession day in and day out, it helps me to be more cognizant of keeping my side of the street clean, just in a general sense.
I like that.
Doesn't mean I don't make mistakes. Sometimes I think people have unrealistic expectations, like, oh, you should never be getting angry. So if you're a therapist, you should have no problems. You should have perfect coping skills all the time always.
Wow.
Imagine that. Yeah.
That would be weird.
Don't ever sit on an airplane and tell anybody you're a therapist.
Yeah, forget it. They
never.
pour out their whole life.
You're trapped for a few hours.
Yeah.
Well, I couldn't wait to get here. I have a whole list of things to talk to you about.
Do you?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I only have one. I have one. It's probably less of a question and more of a statement.
Sure.
And you might be able to just give me a general answer. I've been on kind of a high for the last almost 2 years because I was involved in a feature film with Matthew McConaughey, and then I made a movie, Bad Boys with Will Smith and Martin Lawrence, Martin Lawrence was in that Matthew McConaughey movie, and I was working on a lot of things, and I flew out to LA and I did movie premieres, and I was doing all this exciting stuff.
Right.
And I was on a high.
Sure.
And, my love life was fabulous and everything was fabulous. I was having a lot of sex. No, I'm kidding. But I'm saying I don't know what the word is. Everything was operating on all their cylinders.
Sure.
And then it came to a halting stop. I mean, everything went, and I almost feel like I'm in a funk right now. Okay. And is that normal? The movie came out. It was the worst movie Matthew McConaughey has ever made. It was his worst box office opening.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. And then when I got booked on Bad Boys, everyone in South Florida had a shit fit because they thought it was a conspiracy that I booked it because, oh my God, how could she book 2 movies? No one books 2 movies. It must be, she must have given the director a blowjob, it was a whole, and now I'm embroiled in this election thing with SAG-AFTRA, and it's just, I'm kind of in a funk, to be honest. And so is that normal? Is that a normal thing? Because, I feel like I'm in a little funk and I'm not used to that feeling right now. I don't even want to get up. I came the other night to get up and perform and I just couldn't get up.
Oh, you never actually
I never got up. No.
You texted me.
I did.
So you lacked the motivation to do it,
Yeah.
I think?
Yeah, I actually had no confidence. And that's not me. I'm I'm a girl and I have the biggest balls in the room. So
Don't doubt that.
seriously. And I didn't. I had no balls the other night.
You just lack the motivation to kind of get out of bed that day
Yeah.
then. So it's not so much so is it normal, is it not normal? Because, what's typical for Sharon, I really don't know. You would know
'cause
that
don't know
best.
me. Yeah.
But from what I'm hearing you say, it's abnormal, it's atypical for what you are typically going through, to be almost on that high going for so long and then to hit a wall
it's
like
just like-
that. You could just be struggling with coming to terms of and acceptance of and still processing the things that have kind of all transpired, working to make sense of it and find your next move. Maybe you're kind of regrouping and seeing how you feel about what's going on in your life and seeing what you'd like to do about it. You're taking this time to heal and to kind of go through what Sharon needs to go through. And that's okay.
Okay. I kind of figured that. I'm like, okay, just deal with it.
Do you?
Sharon,
And-
Which is what I usually
Yeah.
do. Yeah.
You're amazing.
There you go.
And you're positive. That's a big thing.
Well, I usually try to be, and I usually try to be very, I try to be, but you get like,
You're human.
you feel like you're getting beat up a lot, and then you
That's life, right? Life comes in waves. It's
Right.
like the weather. It's like there's a storm. All right, you got to weather that storm.
right.
The good thing is storms don't last forever.
Thank
Eventually,
God.
the sun comes back out.
Unless you live in
So,
South Florida.
This
if you're in
not the
Florida,
best analogy, Joe.
yeah, I know. If
No,
you're in
I'm
Florida,
kidding.
it's
I'm
bipolar because of the way the weather is.
Yeah. It's
you know?
important that you recognize you obviously got out of bed today. I mean, you're
Well,
still
yeah.
staying connected. You still have relationships. It'd be one thing if you were completely like secluding yourself and isolating in the house and avoiding your responsibilities and not showering or going to work or paying your bills. Then you'd have to really look at that and say, okay, what's going on here? It's typical for what somebody, probably anybody who would be going through what Sharon just went through would be going through right now. If that makes sense.
No, it does. It does. I mean,
You're gonna
hang on, let me get my
you're
checkbook.
gonna book another gig. Watch.
Of course, there's stuff already in the works, I'm sure. The biggest thing to recognize when we're feeling some type of way, like what you're going through right now, is not shaming ourselves and judging ourselves for, hey, is what I'm feeling normal? Or I don't like that I'm feeling this way, or what's wrong with me? Or I don't want other people to see that this is what I'm going through. Because part of the self-compassion that we should be towards ourselves is, instead of saying, how am I different and separate from other people, is how am I the same? Or how can I reach out to somebody that might have already gone through what I went through so that they can help me? Or even if it's somebody they're not necessarily going to give you an answer, maybe just calling up a friend and they're not even going to give you any advice and they're just a sounding board.
Yeah.
I mean, they say statistically people with plants and animals live longer because they're talking to their plants and their animals every day. They're not really getting advice. They're just sounding boards for them.
Mm-hmm.
You've got some
Okay.
really good
Plants.
friends.
No, I have a brown thumb.
Here, talk to the cake.
Yeah. That's the problem. I talk a lot to my cakes and my candies, my double
Aw,
dogs,
I can't keep a
my
plant
double
alive to
dogs,
save
my
my life.
chocolate.
You have dogs?
No, but the person I work for has a dog, Bruno. So I loved.
I
Bruno.
love dogs.
Yeah, I do too.
Love
And I could have pets, but I'm never home, so
It's-
I choose not to do that.
It's
Only
hard.
because I love them so much.
Yeah,
I would feel so bad.
I spend
So-
so much time and energy and attention and money.
Yeah,
on
I
my
just
dogs.
don't. Yeah.
Speaking of money, that's a stressful thing to deal with. Finances.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, finance, I think for everybody is a trigger.
Yeah. So like, all right. Say for example, in life, obviously we all have our different struggles. Well, let's talk finances for
Sure.
example. So you got some financial struggles going on, or you're trying to maybe coordinate how you're going to properly spend your money, pay your bills, things like that.
Right.
And sometimes people get wrapped up in, oh my God, I have so much stress because I got this bill to pay.
Yeah.
What is maybe a good technique for somebody to use to kind of, get that balance back where they could calm down and kind of, think on a positive level where, all right, let me get myself grounded again.
Sure.
Because that could kind of
Yeah.
spiral into a lot of
Absolutely.
different things. What would your advice be?
Projecting into the future and catastrophizing, absolutely, they cause anxiety. And it depends, I guess, what the typical situation would be. I'll just give this random example. Doing a break-even analysis. Some of my patients who have maybe really not kept a good eye on their finances. I'll ask them to sit down and write like their incoming finances that they're receiving in their paychecks weekly, monthly, especially if somebody's looking to quit their job or maybe buy a new car or something like that. And then make another list of all their outgoing expenses, their mortgage, their electricity, their cell phone, and just kind of see how much wiggle room they really have and how long it would maybe take them if they needed to save X amount of money, if they wanted to book like a holiday or something like that, or it's just kind of a good. But again, if it's something else, like I'm looking to start my own company, doing a break-even analysis is not really going to help you make that decision, kind of thing. But if somebody's making big decisions in life in a general sense, financiers or not, doing maybe a payoff matrices is important, where you do the positives and negatives of making the decision that you're thinking about maybe making, and the positives and negatives of not making that decision. And I know that sounds almost redundant, but when you're asking yourself the question and you're phrasing it in a different way, it almost elicits a different response that you might not have thought of if you just said only the positives and negatives of making the decision and not both. So I don't know if that necessarily helps.
It does. I mean, I'll do like sometimes when I have like a really tough decision to make,
Sure.
I'll actually write down the pros and cons and see what
Awesome.
outweighs.
Yeah.
Like I'm always praying, I hope the pros outweigh the cons. No matter what, I'm doing it.
Listen, at the end of the day, and again, it doesn't need to be specifics to finances, but you might have your two lists of the pros and cons, and one list might be glaringly obvious, and it might have all the information you need there. But if maybe emotionally you're tied to a certain decision for another reason, maybe it warrants spending more than 30 seconds thinking about why we're feeling like how we feel.
Yeah.
I'm not to say don't ever make a decision based on how you feel, but try not to be impulsive and make decisions just based on our feelings.
Right. Very
Sometimes, yeah.
Very true. I like that. Yeah, that's big.
Easier said than done.
Yes,
Yeah.
it is. Oh, dealing with finances could be crazy. You know, it really could be. You know, even for people that are wealthy, you know, a lot of people, whether you got no money or a lot of money,
More money, more problems.
Yeah, more money, more problems. And it's true, you know, but like, you know, the more money you make, sometimes the more stuff you buy, and that means
This
the
is
more bills
true.
you have, and it all evens out at the end of the day. But I think you got to figure out a way to, in this crazy world that we live in, if you're fortunate enough to make enough money,
Right.
do you have the mindset to live a little under your means so you got something left
Right.
over? You know, it's very tempting out there with all the advertising they have. Buy this, buy that.
Yep.
This will do this for you. This will do
Impulse
that for you.
control.
Impulse control, right?
For sure.
It's.
I'm guilty of that.
Yeah.
If it's true that, you know, more money, more problems, then I shouldn't have a problem in the world.
That's funny.
So all right. So for you,
Yes.
what's your advice when it comes to spending money? What's one thing like, you know, it's like, oh man, all right, fine, I'm gonna go get it. Like, what's your?
You're asking the wrong person.
Really?
Yes, really, because what I tell all my girlfriends when they call me up and they're like, I saw this purse and I love it so much and it's way out of my price range. I'm like, listen,
You need it.
no, good
You're the
Tiffany.
opposite. Uh-oh.
Tiffany, I tell my friends, listen, if your car broke down today, or your refrigerator broke, or your, you know, air conditioner broke down, or whatever the stupid thing that you would have to replace,
Right.
you'd figure out how to find the money for that piece of shit, wouldn't you? And they go, yeah. And I'm go buy that purse, girlfriend. Go buy that purse, because you know what? That purse is going to make you happy, and you're going to put that purse on your arm and you're going to walk down the street feeling good and whatever. And they're like, really? I'm like, yeah, go buy the purse, girlfriend. You might not be here tomorrow. Go buy that fucking purse. I am the wrong person to
Sharon,
ask.
do I go G?
Yay!
I love
Yay!
it.
That's how I feel
I'll
about it.
never understand that.
I
I
love
can understand
that's how-
purses, but the
you know what?
mindset of that you only live once, you
You
get
only
hit by
live
a
once,
bus
go buy the
tomorrow.
I
purse.
say that a lot, actually.
I
go
do
buy the
too.
purse. Go buy the purse. Go
But
buy the
there's
shoes.
devil
Buy
and
the
then there's
lipstick.
the
Buy the.
angel.
Go get it. Go get it and enjoy it. You'll figure out how to pay for it.
That's
You'll
funny.
figure it out.
I hear you. I guess it's perspective of how you think,
Please.
right?
And culture, how you were raised.
But on the other side, ask Sharon how much money she has in the bank.
Millions.
I got negative $327.
$1 billion.
-3. I'm telling you, I overdrew my account yesterday because the car payment was due. But then I put my paycheck in, and now it's back up
You're
where it
back
needs to
again,
be.
replenished.
But so what? I could be dead on Monday. Who cares? I don't care.
Yeah,
I don't care.
For you.
I have a beautiful family. I have a beautiful grandson who lives. I have a beautiful life.
You're blessed.
I have a beautiful life. Who cares? I don't care.
Right. So
I'm the wrong person to ask.
It's,
No, I think that was a good perspective to have.
I trying to be very positive with how I live my life.
You want to get married?
So,
See, I'm just going to get married. I'm going to go with my third husband. He's going to pay all my bills.
Positive thinking is so important because, like, we're like you said, you can get hit by a bus tomorrow, right? So, and then the big thing for me is like the reflection on the past, right? Trying to like say, okay, you know, it's like driving a car, right? It's okay to look through the rear view because you gotta see what's going on, but you don't want to look in the rear view for too long. That's the kind of same thing with the past. Like, you don't want to look in the past for too long because it's distracting you what's going on right in front
That's
of you.
right.
Sure.
So,
Don't have any
for me,
regrets.
it's about positive thinking and just basically, hey, this happened, but it already happened. It's done.
That's right.
Right.
So I need to look, onward and upward.
Onward and
You
upward.
gotta keep, going forward.
That's
So
right.
the thing I would say is like, yeah, man, I could be dead tomorrow. So why
That's
the hell am I stressing about stuff that happened
You
a
can't
month ago,
worry
a
about
year
what
ago?
happened.
Why am I stressing about stuff that in the future that may not even happen?
That's right.
So I think trying to rebalance yourself. I'm no therapist, but it's just my own little theory.
Joe, buy the purse.
Quit your job, buy the ticket. What does it? Take the ride. What's that T-shirt say? Yeah.
Buy the purse, fine.
Buy the purse.
I don't understand that about women with purses. Why
Not
it's
all
so
women
important.
are, but that's okay.
Not
So
everybody.
many things
Not
come up.
everybody's like
I do hear you, Joe, with the whole analogy with the rear view, and they say if you're looking in the rear view mirror, you're doing it just to be introspective about
right.
something specific in the past that may be impacting you. Maybe it's a sign that you need to process, get some closure, talk about it, go to a therapist, or just call up a friend. But if you're recognizing it's every day, all day long, if you're feeling heightened negative emotional states for extended periods of time, it's usually some sort of like indication that something needs to be done about this.
Right.
I need to process it, figure out what's going on. But if that's like an everyday thing, whatever the little problems, like for somebody all the time, they're making this mountain out of this molehill, then it could potentially be like a mental health condition.
Right. That's
but it's important to know where you came from so you don't repeat mistakes and you can
Agreed.
have a better understanding of where you'd like to go. If we're just running around painting the town red all the time and then wondering why things are never going our way, we have to kind of pump the brakes sometimes and look at what role we play and why we're not happy. And on that, what you're talking about with the purse is I have no problem giving that advice. I think that advice can be applicable in certain situations, but if it's, let's say it's that same girlfriend's calling you every weekend or every other week, then you want to ask her, well, is that purse really going to make you happy? Maybe you have an addiction to shopping, or is it some sort of external locus of control that you're trying to fulfill your
anything in
internal
excess
happiness?
is never good.
So true.
Never. If it's excessive, then it's definitely not good.
Balance.
And any addiction
moderation.
is not good.
This is true.
I mean, any addiction.
Not healthy.
Yeah. Unless we're talking about sex. And I'm kidding people.
You'll make accommodations for that addiction. I do, yeah, okay.
But yeah, so, but some people, they take it to the extreme also with being the opposite of saving every penny, and they don't spend anything. And then they're in a relationship with someone who doesn't, they're like miserly, and then they don't even have fun and they don't enjoy anything. And then I get those phone calls too.
That's
like,
unfortunate.
my boyfriend won't even, pay for dinner. Or, I'm like, well, what are you doing? Like, that's retarded. Like, what are you doing? And, so there's always an extreme, and I don't believe in extremes for anything. Like, everything should be done in moderation.
But if we're not recognizing that behavior is extreme, and for us, maybe it's typical because it's how we were raised, or it's how our thought processes are, or it's our cultural upbringing, we might not necessarily know that.
Right. You're absolutely right. Mm-hmm.
That's crazy to think there's so many different perspectives out there.
Oh yeah.
Well, how you're raised and
Yeah.
the kind of culture you were raised in or the family that raised
Right.
you. Like, you don't know all these things when you're a kid, all these little lessons
Yeah,
you learn and
absolutely.
thoughts that go through your mind.
How they
Develop into
impact
an
you.
adult. Your perspective could be completely different than somebody
Totally.
else's. It's amazing, though, if you think about that psychological
It is.
way, how the mind works and
Yeah.
how we identify things and see things based on our experiences in the past. You know,
Yep.
it's incredible, but you can grow from those things.
Right.
You know, you could. I think like people in crisis, you know, you can make that decision. Well, you know, all this stuff happened to me. What do I do? Do I let it
Right.
knock me down? Do I go to the bottle? Do I go to the
To be
needle? Do I go to the
victim.
Right.
pills?
Exactly.
You know,
Victim.
poor me, or do I stand up and say, you know what, this is a part of life. You know, these
Right.
things are going to happen.
I'm not
And
going to
move
let my
forward.
trauma define me.
Right.
Right. Exactly. I know people who they're literally what you just said. Their past defines them. Like all they talk about is, well, this is what happened to me when I was a child, and that's why I can't move forward, and that's why I'm a drug addict, and that's why I'm
Those are
Well,
excuses.
right.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, I went through the same thing you went through. I never even smoked a cigarette. I don't know.
People cope differently.
Right. It's like, stop. Just come on. Stop. Please, please, please.
Got a life to live too.
You
It's
got
like,
a life to live.
hey,
Like,
look, like I'm 36, right? But all right, great. You know, stuff happened to me in the past, but it's like, man, I got all this to go.
right.
It's a marathon. I got so
Right.
much coming up this way.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Sometimes being understanding, and of course, when humans typically we don't understand something, we're fearful of what we might not know. But understanding that some people have different, like that's. I literally thought my mind just had blonde moment of what I was just going to say. Just
Saying
Right
coping
out.
mechanisms, and I
no, it was about when you're talking about looking forward into the future. It's going to come back to me and something else. Yeah.
well, if I may just refer back to what you were saying before about the rear view mirror, and I appreciate that rear view mirror because it's good to remember, like you said, where you come from,
Right.
because those are lessons, and we all need those lessons so that we can learn from them and grow from them, but keep moving forward.
Right.
Like you got to keep going that way, not regress backwards. And I feel like when people say, well, this is who I am today, and I'm going to stay this way because of what happened to me 30 years ago,
Right.
that's a regression.
Mm-hmm.
That's not productive. Like you need to keep going that way, not that way. Like I don't,
The
I just-
expectations, that's what I was going to
Yeah.
say. Our expectations that other people would be or think or do how we are or how we would think and how we would do. I get caught up in that a lot. I'm very guilty of that. I have sometimes really high expectations for things
So do
that
I.
people are just like, Tiff,
I have high
you got to come
expectations
down.
always.
And then
I-
there's other things that I'm just like, oh, whatever, it is what it is. And people are like, whoa, that's pretty serious. Like, you should have higher expectations of that. So, but I have to try to remind myself of that, be cognizant that just because I might mentally be there and you're talking about that whole happiness, how you try to be happy every day. For a long time in my life, happiness was a struggle. That whole glass half empty, glass half full.
Yeah.
There was no glass. There would be days where I was just
You didn't
so
even have a
angry
glass.
or depressed when I was younger. Yeah, so it's hard to just kind of say I can be positive. No matter what happens, I can kind of just look to the future.
Right.
That's a lot easier said than done. I mean, if you
Sure
don't
it
have
is.
supports in our life or coping skills or the
Support.
ability to reframe some of the negative to the positive on our own, you have to learn that over time. You have to be taught that. And if that wasn't your way of thinking, you have to change your neural pathways. And those things can take some time. Not to say it can't be done. I used to be very envious of those people that would walk around when they were happy all the time. What do you got to be happy about? Yeah.
Didn't you want to punch
I
them?
did, Sharon.
Whistler, I'm like, I just want
Get
to
out of my
choke you right now.
face, yeah.
And Whistlers,
Yeah,
do you think it's possible that people could change their thinking?
absolutely.
Yeah,
I'm
I
one
do
of them
too.
who's done it.
I do too.
I wouldn't be able to do therapy
I
that
do
I
too.
didn't believe in.
Yeah,
if
you
it was
have to do
something, and
that.
I know insurances are all, we'll only reimburse with the evidence-based practices. Yes, evidence-based practices are very important, but I wouldn't be able to do anything in therapy if I was going to tell one of my patients, you got to get honest, you cheated on your wife or something like that. I would expect that of myself in my own life. If that's something that I'm going to be working a process in my patient and they're saying, do you think I should be honest? I mean, I can't tell them what to do, but I can process with them, well, do you want to be honest? And what would that look like? And if you didn't want to be honest, how would it impact you? But then, of course, you think to yourself, well, I would have to be honest. Like, if I'm going to sit here and hold this person with compassion and go through this with them, that's something I would expect from myself, too.
Right.
Question for you. So, for at least I can only speak for myself.
Sure.
So, for me, I had a challenging year, but I was able to overcome a lot of negativity, and I guess because of the negativity, I was able to tell myself I need to change the way I think and change my perspective in life and the things that I want for myself, the things I want to kind of project into the world. And it's interesting because of all the stuff that has happened to me.
Sure.
It brought me to think this way because I've never thought this way before. So my question to you is, that happened to me because of situations that have occurred in the past.
Right.
But for somebody that is going through stuff,
Right.
What would be your advice to them to kind of find that area in their brain where they could change their thinking, but they don't see it yet? Is there a
Motivational interviewing techniques.
Okay.
Finding out what motivates everybody. I use this example a lot in therapy sessions. If my dog, it's raining outside and I got to take my dog outside to poop, I might want to wait 10 minutes for the rain to stop because I know, A, I don't want to get wet, and B, my dog's probably not going to poop in the rain. Does that mean I'm lazy? And no, it just means I'm not motivated to go outside when it's raining. So it's just finding what people's motivations are for certain things. Somebody's is a beer, somebody's is a coffee, somebody's is a cake. Everybody's got different stuff for them. So for you, that was maybe enough for you to realize. And in hindsight, you also said it was a full year. It wasn't just one day. But you were able to realize and process through that you didn't really like certain things that had transpired in that year, and you were willing to do something about it. So you didn't just have the insight to recognize what you were feeling, that you weren't happy, and really to identify and hone in on those things that needed to change. But you also bridged the gap between having the insight and having the judgment to improve upon making those behavioral changes so that you are continuing down the paths, making some of those same mistakes, which you already knew resulted in you feeling sad or what have you. But a lot of people, that whole shame I was talking about earlier, and the negative self-judgment, people will actually have the insight, which is almost worse. They say that ignorance is bliss. If you have the insight to know what works for you and what doesn't work for you, but you bridge the gap to have improved judgment, you're not really sure how to make changes or who to ask for help or what you should be doing, and you stay stuck and you're knowing that it's not working and you're not happy, that's really when you have that conflict inside, that cognitive dissonance of like, I'm so unhappy, this isn't working, I don't know what to do, I feel stuck, I feel powerless, and that's a really bad place to be, mentally and emotionally. So I commend you for being able to do and make the changes.
Lots of mistakes, but I think we got there.
If you're learning from them, then they were all worth it.
Yeah, I said that today actually. But yeah, it is. You look back and you say, well, am I going to cry about all the mistakes I made, all the stuff that happened to me, or am I going to say, you know what? In a way, it's a good thing because I was able to learn a lot from it and learn a lot about myself. So hey, look. I don't have all the answers, but I know that I feel it works for me, And I think that, what about, so I had another theory.
Sure. The aliens theory? Yeah.
The aliens, I've been a couple of times.
That's for the
usually
next
at the
podcast.
51.
That's usually here at the Robot, but I may as well plug them now. Guys, we've been at this great place, and I love this place. The Mad Robot Brewing Company in Boca Raton. So if you haven't been here, check this place out. It's an awesome place. Sharon will tell you.
It's your guide thing podcast. How cool is this?
It really is.
I love it.
Yep. You could actually get your own. If you want to be a member of the Oil Can Club here, you could be a member, like Tiffany just showed you. Maybe you can see it, maybe you can't. It's kind of tough with the light, but it says a Guide Thing podcast on it. I am actually member number 1.
Wow.
So I'm very special. I feel special at least. But it's a cool place. They do a homebrew class, $25 a person. If you want to do like a date or something like that, or just with your friends, For $25 a person, you get 2 beers included. You learn how to brew your own beer. In 4 weeks, when the beer is ready, you can come here and drink for free on the tap. It's a good deal.
That's nice.
And then they have open mic night. You'll see Sharon here with her boobies out and doing a whole comedy skit.
It's pretty. They've got art on the walls, comfy couches,
It's really great.
nice aesthetics. Yeah.
It's a great place. It's very welcoming,
location.
great crowd, great audience, great comedians. And they don't just have comedy. On open mic night, it's not just comedy. They have musicians and, sometimes it's even, I don't want to say poetry. Yeah, like,
Poetry,
it's just really cool. The vibe, it's a young vibe. Because I know a lot of you are going, she's so fucking old. Well, I don't want to go there. It's not just old people like me. It's young people. It's really cool. You guys will love it.
Yeah, check it out. It's cool. But in my opinion, and I'm not just saying it.
He's young.
They love him. 36 years young. But
Yeah, that's young.
So, but you got to check this place out. In my opinion, I've been to a lot of the breweries here. I love breweries, but this is by far the best one in Palm Beach County. So,
Wow.
you guys got to check this out. The
That's
beer
a
is incredible.
statement.
Beer is incredible.
I'm sold. I'm going to have one now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Done. I knew it.
There you go.
Thank you. That's awesome. And so my other thing was, all right. So my other theory was creating the world you want to live in. So my and this is kind of based on the podcast, but I wanted to get. I know there's a lot of people out there, myself included, where we kind of let the world dictate how our life is going to go. We let the world tell us what's good, what's bad, what to do, what not to do, what's cool, what's not. You should look this way, you should not look this way, right? There's a lot that the world tells us.
Yeah.
So when I started this podcast, I got a lot of support and a lot of flack for it, right?
That means you're doing it right.
Okay. And I'm like, I don't care. Like, I just want to do it. I don't really have any other motive.
Right.
I just think it's kind of fun. And one of the things for me was that Sharon knows me from acting. I was so passionate about it when I started acting. I did it for like 7 or 8 years. I got my eligibility to join the guild. Sharon's in the guild.
So cool.
And I was sold out for it. Like, I wanted to be an actor. But I had to work full time. It was very hard to do these auditions, going to Miami and doing these auditions Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. It's hard to hold a job while doing that. That's why a lot of people wait tables and stuff.
Right.
So I took a long hiatus from it. But when the podcast was presented to me, I'm like, well, this is kind of like a artistic outlet for me. I can still kind of do the entertainment thing.
Right.
Not on a grand level on the silver screen,
Sure.
but I could do something
That's
and kind of
meaningful.
fill that void in my life.
It's meaningful to
Something
you.
that I enjoy to do. So when I was getting like the flack from it, and I was like, what are you doing? That's stupid, I was saying to myself, well, maybe you think it's stupid, maybe the world thinks it's stupid, but I don't. So
I love it.
kind of done with that whole theory of like, I'm going to do, because the world tells me I need to do it, I'm going to
Right.
do it. So now, because we talked about you could be dead tomorrow, why not create the world that you want to live in
That's
right now?
right.
And I know that people that are listening are thinking that same exact thing, like, yeah, right. I got to go to work every day. I got to do this, I got to do that. But what is that true passion that you really want to do?
Right.
How could you input that into your life?
Oh, such a great question. I do. Is that?
I'm
I
asking you.
Oh
yeah.
my God. Well, I don't have all those answers. If I did, I'd probably obviously be like a multi-billionaire or something. I guess you just have to take each day in stride, not let it beat you down so that you can work to find. Just like when people ask me, what's a boundary? How do I create a boundary in my life? Well, we don't know that there's a problem until the problem comes up. And then you say, oh, that sucked. I'm going to create the boundary so that doesn't happen to me again. I mean, when people would say to me today, like, well, what would you do if you had $1 million? I'm like, oh, maybe I'd open up a dog rescue. I love dogs. Maybe I'd open up a battered women's shelter for, women in crisis and families, things that I'm passionate about. I love to travel the world. These things are all important to me. So I'm trying to do more for me that makes me happy. I have a trip to Mexico, I think I was telling you.
Tell me about
I
that.
have booked. I'm very excited.
Yeah.
Just trying to find out things that do make me happy. And it's not necessarily what the social media and the world is telling you. So I really don't have a good answer for that. You got to try it out, see what sticks. And if there's things that you really are gravitating towards or people that make you happy, spend more time trying to do those things that make you happy and find out, why they make you happy. And if I'm not advocating anybody go quit their day job, but if you have things that you gravitate towards, I know just the other day I was having a conversation with a good close friend of mine, and I was saying how that whole, for all the things that we've invented in the world today to fix problems, why does 5 o'clock traffic still exist? And really, like, why is that not fixed yet or addressed? And there's days when I'm just driving to my regular job and in the traffic, and I'm like, this is not what humanity is supposed to be. This is not what existence is supposed to be. People flipping each other off and cutting each other off, and just like this heart pounding, and you're stressed out. By the time you get to work, you're ready for a nap. You know what I mean? It's crazy. And I think to myself some days, I'm like, well, this is not really what life is supposed to be for anybody, especially not for me. And if I really don't want this to be my life anymore, what is it that I could work towards? What goals do I have? Realistic goals. And of course, you try things. You dip your hand in some cookie jars. You see what works out. You spitball ideas. You talk about them with other people. You research them. You try them out. I'm in the middle of doing that for myself, for other different career avenues as well. So there's really no one area. It's just, I guess if I had to say one thing to choose, it would be don't be afraid to fail. Everybody fails. We're supposed to, and we learn so much from failing. I think so often people don't try because they're afraid of failing, and it keeps them stuck in quicksand for so long. And I've heard people say on your deathbed, the last thing you want to do is have resentment. So if you're going to live your life, it's the only one you got based on what religious beliefs you have. Try it out.
Don't have any regrets.
I sent this to you.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you've heard it, maybe you didn't, but I will send it to you.
Yes.
It's a song, but it's really a speech with music in the background. Did you listen to it when I sent it to you a while back?
Which one was
It's
it?
incredible. It's one of my most favorite inspirational speeches that I listened to. And
I'm sure I did.
I got it. Actually, and for people that are listening, it's definitely something you want to hear. And I got to pull it up right now for you. I'm not going to play it, but I'll tell you what it is.
I'm interested, yeah.
But it's incredible. Like when I first heard it, I have Apple iTunes, so I just put the Apple radio on, and I think I had like 90s music on, and this popped up. It was like the class of '99, and it was a speech from an author, and he said the most simplest things that made the most sense.
Yeah, I listened
that I was
to
just
it.
like, you heard it,
I
right?
listened
What did you think of that?
I think I remember thinking I really loved it. Didn't I write back to you and tell you I loved
I
it?
think so, yeah. I have my memory spotty sometimes. But,
Yeah, well,
I'm excited.
I'm horrible.
I'm going to tell you it's coming up. I got some actually. That's pretty good songs.
I love 80s and 90s music.
So,
I love it.
What's your favorite music from the 80s? What genre?
Maybe Heart.
Oh, there you go. That's, oh no, I'm thinking of the other guy. Oh, man. I hate the fact that I can't
You'll have to
find this
post
right
it later
now.
on the Facebook.
I'll find
Yeah,
it. Damn, I
text
want
it to me.
to tell you guys what this
That's
one
like me
is
with the
right
movie
now.
earlier.
Yeah.
I call them
I will
blonde
look it up on my
moments.
phone,
Yeah.
but I got you guys on my phone.
I think I can find it though. But yeah, so it was just a cool song. Like it said, he says, "Wear sunscreen." That's the first thing I'm going to tell you. Wear sunscreen. And then he starts saying these things like, the class of '99. He goes, "You're not going to appreciate your youth until it's gone."
Of course.
And then respect your elders. If you have siblings, have a good relationship with them, because most likely they're going to be the ones that are going to stay with you in the future when
Yeah.
everybody else is gone. Get to know your parents, because one day they won't be here, and you're going to wish you got to know them. And he just says like all these things, and it literally is a speech that kind of flashes your entire life before your eyes in a matter of 3.5 minutes, and you're just like he goes from beginning to end,
Right.
and it's just
It
It's
resonates.
really good.
It's so cool. It really hits home for everything that's going on in your life. I don't know. It's just.
I'm excited to hear it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll send it to you. It's really cool. Sorry guys, I don't remember, and I don't want to keep flipping through my phone and be
It's
rude.
okay.
But yeah, I think it's really cool. But I want to cut that cake. I want to have some.
I'm ready.
You should do it.
You
Shaq,
need to
wanna
do
tell
it. No, you need to do it. Your parents bought it, and you need to do it. It's not my own.
I'll make a massive
I'll do the
cut.
first.
You do the first cut, and then I'll do the slicing if
I'll
you
try.
like.
Yeah.
And I definitely want to bite.
That's for you.
Thank you.
That's for
It'll
you.
go
Thank
good with
you.
the coffee beer.
Thank you.
I love
We're having
these
cake,
tables
guys.
right here. Can I just point out what's on these tables? It's
Absolutely.
schlacked board games from like the 90s or
Yeah,
something.
man. Oh,
This
wow.
one is Candyland, but
Yeah.
this one is Clue,
You got it?
and they're
We're having
so
cake.
awesome.
I'm having cake.
All right.
Okay.
You
You
All right,
made the
I did
slice.
the first slice now.
Thanks, Mom and Dad.
Teamwork.
Thanks, Mom and Dad.
Haven't met you guys, but you're pretty cool.
Yes, they are.
They are the best.
And I really hope that
They are the best.
it's on my phone.
Have you had them on
that
your
you
podcast?
my Facebook
No,
Live is
but I-
not
Oh my God, we
sideways.
should totally do that.
Wait,
A family.
A
I hope the
family
Facebook
session.
Live
Yeah.
isn't sideways. You think it's sideways?
No.
You're not with no? You sure
No, you're
about
good.
that?
Oh, I can't wait to taste it.
Here,
Brittany,
baby.
hey, what's up, Brittany?
Thanks, Meg.
I will send you the song. It's an awesome song.
Oh, she knows it.
What is it? What's it
No,
called?
no, no. She wants me to send it to her when I find it.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
Mm.
I'm gonna
It's
try
really
the
good.
cake.
Is it?
Shout
I
out
just-
to Publix.
I just
Wow.
want you guys to all know I
Yeah.
cut myself the biggest slice
Good for you.
Good. Okay.
because I'm a gavone and I'm
Gabon.
taking
You know
and
what
I'm
a Gabon
taking-
is? Tell Tiffany
It's a
what a
pig.
Gabon is. Tell her where it comes from.
Is it Italian?
it's Italian.
It's
It's from the Italian language.
Italian.
The Italians.
Oh, my family's Jewish. I can see that.
Is that literally what a gavone is? What is it? What is it? What is it?
I thought it was a Gabon. It's like a pig.
Is a gavone? Is
Like a
that what it
slop.
is,
I did not
guys?
know.
Any of my Italian friends, is that really what a gavone is? Like the literal translation?
I think it's a
Was it
swamp.
something
This
else?
is really good.
Yeah,
Like a swine? A pig? A gavone?
I think
I don't
that's what it is. I think so.
I just say it.
That's what I think of when I hear Gabon. Gabon, Gabon. How you doing?
Thanks
Oh
so
my
much
God.
for having
Oh
you
my
guys.
God.
This was awesome.
Publix? I
It was
love
my pleasure
Publix.
to have you on. I'm so happy that you came on the show.
Let's cheers.
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 Salud, Chandan.
Hello. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Episode 50 in the book. Season 2 starts next week. We're in season 2.
Woo! So
Unbelievable.
cool.
Woohoo!
50 episodes in a year, so I only missed 2
Wow.
weeks, so not bad.
Wow.
Pretty cool.
Why
So,
did you
it's
miss 2
amazing.
weeks? What happened?
Just, some family stuff.
Holiday.
Yeah,
Really?
holidays. Yeah.
Exercising
crazy.
self-care.
Well, don't let that happen in season 2.
Oh,
Thank you.
goodness.
See, I got expectations for season 2.
Double up
Gotta
on
get
the
it.
week before
Right,
and the week out.
I have to do that. Well, no, seriously, the cool thing about it is that when I talk about creating your own world, guys, I may preach that on every episode, creating the world that you want to live in, because it's so important to be happy and
Oh my
get that
God.
self-fulfillment. But with the podcast, I created this little podcast bubble that I live in. But it's so cool because for the people that have been listening since day one, you got to see the evolution of this thing happen. So, like, it started from a kitchen with just a microphone, no camera. Now I've had Skype interviews with athletes and celebrities, and things are starting to transition, and it's about that positivity, that don't let negativity knock you down. You understand the fact that you're going to get told no a lot, you're going to fail a lot, but the idea is to stay in it for the long haul. The actual percentage is 60% of podcasts don't make it to episode 10.
Wow.
So I'm in a 40% range right now, and my plan is to be in 1% range. That's my plan. So
Growth.
that's right. And my perspective of it is, if I could start from my kitchen and now have athletes and celebrities and do a weekly live show on YouTube, well, I could take that to the next level now. So guys, think about the things that you want to do in your life. Even if you start small, just do them, because it's going to make you happy and bring you joy. You don't know what's going to come from that. So create the world that you want to live in, and stop thinking about
Love it.
what other people tell you how to live. Just do it.
Just
You're
do
not
it.
hurting anybody. Have some cake, have a beer, have a cup of coffee. How you doing?
Buy the purse.
Buy the
Yeah.
purse, like she said. Forget
Buy
about
the ticket, quit the
refrigerator.
job, take the ride. We're gonna send you guys those
Can I
t-shirts.
say one thing?
You can say 2
Any
minutes.
of you watching on my Facebook Live, my Facebook friends and family, if you think that you might want to be a guest on Joe's podcast, reach out to me. If you think you're like a reasonable enough celebrity down here, or even if you want to Skype, if you're living up in New Jersey or New York or wherever the hell you live in, reach out to me. I'll pass your information along to my good friend Joe, and maybe we can
You're the
put
next
you guys
Tony Robbins.
together, okay?
I will tell you, and it's not just for like people that are trying to be famous or are famous. Interesting stories. That's what I'm looking for. Success stories. People that are able to overcome a lot in their life and get to the next level. Self-motivators. Inspiring stuff for my listeners. Because I feel that if I could put out a show that's inspiring to people, I can inspire others so they can do something with their life that they want to do, and then inspire others. It's all about a chain reaction.
Relatability.
Yes, I like that. And there's enough negativity on social media, in the world, on the news.
So true.
So let's switch it up and be positive, right?
Yeah.
Am I the most positive guy in the world? No, but you gotta you gotta find an even balance in your life, even
Yeah.
when the shit hits the fan. You do. So, guys, that's it. That's all I got for you today. Have the cake, have the coffee, buy the purse, have a beer. Much love, Tiffany. Thank you
Much
again so
love.
much.
Guys.
And for our listeners, how can our listeners get in touch with you?
My phone number is 561-569-2203, and you can go on the website, veganlife.net, and send an email. Thank you.
Yay.
Tomorrow, I will announce the winner of the discount to
Awesome.
meet with Tiffany on social media. So get
Thank
ready.
you.
One of the subscribers will be a winner. So stay tuned.
Yay.
All right, guys, have a great weekend. Thanks for tuning in on a random time on a Saturday. Enjoy
Bye.
your weekend. God bless you all.
I gotta go now. Later. Bye.
Now we can go for a beer.
Yes.